They went on a family vacation without me. On my 80th birthday, so I changed the locks while they were gone. When I changed the locks on my house while my son was sipping Mai Tais in Hawaii, I wasn't being petty. I was stopping a thief who'd stolen $120,000 from me and planned to steal everything else by having me declared incompetent. Let me back up. My name is Maya Johnson. I'm 78 years old, and until last week, I thought the worst betrayal I'd face would be getting older. How naive I was. The deepest cut comes from the child you raised with your own hands, and mine came wrapped in cheerful Facebook posts from a beach in Maui. Picture this. While Marcus, his wife Sharon, and my precious grandchildren enjoyed their family vacation, deliberately planned for my 80th birthday, I sat completely alone in my kitchen, heartbreaking, staring at mortgage documents I'd found hidden like dirty secrets in his old bedroom, documents bearing my forged signature, a second mortgage on the house I'd sacrificed everything to pay off with my nursing salary. $120,000 stolen from his own mother. The vacation photos kept flooding my phone like salt in an open wound. Sunset dinners at restaurants I could never afford, snorkeling excursions I dreamed of taking with them, luxury hotel suites with ocean views that my stolen money was paying for. All while they told our family I was getting confused and couldn't be trusted with my own finances. The cruelest irony? I'd spent 45 years as a registered nurse in Detroit's most dangerous ER, saving lives, making split-second decisions, handling crisis after crisis with steady hands and a sharp mind. I delivered over 3,000 babies, talked down violent patients, and worked miracles under impossible pressure. Yet my own son thought I was too senile to notice him stealing my life's work. Here's what Marcus never understood about his mother. Those decades of nursing didn't just teach me medical skills. They taught me how to stay deadly calm when everyone around me is panicking, how to document evidence so thoroughly that lies crumble under scrutiny, and most importantly, how to fight like hell when someone underestimates the wrong woman. The Facebook photos showed them raising champagne glasses in celebration, celebrating their theft, their lies, their plan to destroy me. Perfect. While they toasted stealing from the woman who gave them everything, I picked up my phone with the steadiest hands in Detroit. Time to teach my son exactly who his mother really is, and why you never ever bet against a woman who spent her life saving people, starting with saving herself. While my family posted their paradise updates, I spent my birthday weekend becoming a detective. 30 years of organizing medical records had prepared me well for this kind of investigation. I started with Marcus's old bedroom, where I'd found those mortgage papers. Hidden behind his high school yearbooks, I discovered a manila folder, thick with documents, forged signatures on loan applications, copies of my social security card and driver's license, bank statements showing deposits into accounts I'd never opened. The boy I'd raised had turned stealing from me into a science. The most damning evidence was a recorded phone call on his old phone, one he'd apparently forgotten in his rush to paradise. Marcus talking to Sharon about the old lady and how she'll never figure it out. How I was getting senile anyway, and they were just securing their inheritance early. Senile. The woman who still worked part-time at the community clinic, who balanced checkbooks for 3 of my elderly neighbors, who remembered every medication interaction from my nursing days. Marcus had underestimated the wrong woman. I photographed every document, saved every recording, and created 3 copies of everything. Then I called someone I trusted, my friend Diane's daughter, Rebecca Chen, who happened to be one of the sharpest attorneys in the city. "Mrs. Johnson," Rebecca said when I explained the situation, "what your son has done isn't just theft. It's elder abuse, fraud, and forgery. We're going to make him pay." Rebecca arrived Monday morning with her briefcase and a grim expression. At 35, she carried herself with the confidence I remembered from her mother, my old nursing partner who'd passed 5 years ago. Rebecca had inherited Diane's fierce protective instincts and channeled them into law. "The mortgage fraud alone carries serious penalties," she explained, reviewing my evidence. "But the forged signatures and hidden accounts? That's federal crime territory. Mrs. Johnson, your son is looking at prison time." We spent the morning organizing everything chronologically. Rebecca's eyes grew harder with each document. "He's stolen from you systematically for over 2 years. This wasn't desperation. This was calculated abuse." What's our next step? I asked, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. We document everything legally, freeze the accounts, and file criminal charges. But first, we need to secure your assets. Do you want to wait until they return to confront them? I thought about those Hawaii photos, about Marcus calling me senile, about sitting alone on my 80th birthday while they spent my money on their luxury vacation. Number, let's change those locks today. Rebecca smiled, the same smile her mother used to give difficult doctors. I was hoping you'd say that. I've already called a locksmith. And Mrs. Johnson, we're not just changing locks. We're taking back everything he stole, plus damages. Your son picked the wrong senior citizen to mess with. By sunset, my house was secure, my assets were protected, and Marcus's perfect vacation was about to become his worst nightmare. Tuesday morning brought Rebecca back with reinforcements. James Morrison, a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. At 60, James carried himself like the former police detective he was, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Johnson, your son got sloppy, James said, spreading documents across my kitchen table. 5 different banks, multiple credit cards in your name, and here's the kicker. He filed tax returns, claiming you as a dependent while stealing from you. The audacity took my breath away. My careful, methodical son had become a sophisticated predator, and his target had been his own mother. The paper trail is damning, Rebecca added. Phone records show him calling loan officers on days he told you he was job hunting. We have everything for criminal charges and civil recovery. Within hours, we'd frozen every fraudulent account and filed emergency motions. My former colleagues agreed to testify about my mental sharpness. The trap was set. Your son has been monitoring your bank account online, James warned. He'll notice the freezes soon. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Missing you, Mom. 2 more days in paradise. I smiled grimly. Paradise was about to become purgatory. Wednesday's investigation revealed Marcus's most chilling plan yet. James discovered emails between Marcus and a lawyer about having me declared incompetent. Listen to this, James said, reading from printed emails. Mother showing increased confusion about finances, multiple incidents of forgetting conversations, clear signs of early dementia requiring intervention. Every word was a lie. They were building a fictional version of me, a helpless old woman losing her mind, to justify stealing everything I owned. The timeline shows they planned to file guardianship papers when they returned from Hawaii, Rebecca explained, her voice tight with anger. This vacation wasn't celebration. It was preparation for the final theft. The scope was staggering. Forged documents, fraudulent accounts, fabricated medical concerns, and a legal strategy to seize complete control of my life. They'd planned to put me in a care facility and sell my house. What's our countermove? I asked, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. We document everything, freeze their assets, and show the court exactly who's really confused here, Rebecca replied. By tomorrow, Marcus won't just be facing theft charges. He'll be looking at attempted guardianship fraud. I thought about 45 years of nursing, dealing with life and death situations while staying focused under pressure. Then, let's make sure he gets the full education he deserves about underestimating his mother. Thursday morning, I assembled my army. Dr. Patricia Williams, my former supervisor, didn't hesitate. Maya, you have my full support. I'll testify to your competence anywhere, anytime. Bank President Robert Martinez was horrified when I explained Marcus's deception. Mrs. Johnson, your son violated every protocol we have. The bank will make this right and recover every penny. But the call that meant the most was to my neighbor, Sarah Thompson. I knew something was wrong, she said. I've been documenting those suspicious visitors to your house. Honey, I have photos, dates, everything. By evening, I had medical professionals vouching for my mental sharpness, bank officials promising full cooperation, and neighbors providing surveillance evidence. Rebecca coordinated it all into an airtight case. Mrs. Johnson, she said, reviewing our strategy, your son expected to face a confused elderly woman. Instead, he's about to meet a coalition of professionals who don't take kindly to elder abuse. James had one final surprise. Marcus tried accessing your accounts from Hawaii this morning. When the system blocked him, he called the bank pretending to worry about your confusion. They recorded the whole conversation. Everything was in place. Marcus thought he was coming home to execute his final plan against a helpless victim. Instead, he was walking into a federal case with his mother leading the prosecution. Friday afternoon, Rebecca arrived with news that made me smile. For the first time all week, Mrs. Johnson, Marcus tried to access the accounts this morning. When he couldn't, he called the bank from Hawaii, pretending to be concerned about your confusion. What did they tell him? That all account activity had been suspended pending investigation of suspected fraud. He hung up immediately and tried calling you 6 times. I assume you didn't answer? I gestured to my phone, sitting silent on the kitchen table. Let him wonder, what else do we know? James spread out photos and documents. He's booked on a flight landing Sunday at 3 p.m. Sharon's family is keeping the kids for another week. Apparently, this was always planned as just a couple's trip. And the locksmith confirmed all the locks are changed, I asked. Everyone. House, garage, even the garden shed. Plus we've installed security cameras. When Marcus tries to get into what he thinks is still his access to your home, we'll have it all recorded. Rebecca looked at me seriously. Mrs. Johnson, I need to ask you one more time. Are you sure you want to confront him directly? We could handle this through the courts without you having to face him. I thought about 45 years of dealing with difficult patients, drunk drivers brought to the ER, grieving families, and doctors who thought nurses were just assistants. I'd handled them all with grace and firmness. Rebecca, I didn't spend my career backing down from challenges. Marcus needs to look his mother in the eye when he learns what real consequences look like. Then Sunday should be very interesting, James said. Your son thinks he's coming home to complete his plan to have you declared incompetent. Instead, he's walking into a federal case for elder abuse and fraud. I smiled. I can hardly wait to see his face. Sunday arrived gray and cold, matching my mood. I sat in my living room at 2:30 p.m., Rebecca beside me, James positioned by the window. Security cameras were recording, documents were ready, and my phone was set to record our conversation. At 3:47 p.m., Marcus's car pulled into my driveway. I watched my son and daughter-in-law get out, tanned and relaxed, laughing about something. They looked like any couple returning from vacation, not people who'd spent the week spending stolen money. Marcus tried his key. Nothing. He tried again, jiggling the handle. I heard him say to Sharon, "That's weird. Mom must have had the lock fixed." They knocked. I waited 30 seconds, long enough to make them wonder, then opened the door. "Mom," Marcus said, his smile bright and fake. "We're back. The trip was amazing. We brought you." "I know exactly where you've been," I said calmly, "and I know exactly how you paid for it." The smile faltered. "What do you mean?" I stepped aside to reveal Rebecca and James. "Marcus, meet my attorney Rebecca Chen and investigator James Morrison. Gentlemen, meet my son, who thinks his mother is too senile to notice when he steals $200,000 from her." Sharon went pale. Marcus tried to recover. "Mom, what's going on? Who are these people? Are you feeling confused again?" "The only confused person here is you, son. You seem to think I don't know what mortgage fraud is, or forgery, or elder abuse." I held up the manila folder. "Sit down. We need to talk." Marcus and Sharon perched on the edge of my sofa like guilty children, which I supposed they were. Rebecca sat across from them, legal pad ready. James remained standing, his presence making it clear this wasn't a family chat. "Let's start with the mortgage," I said, pulling out the first document, "the one you took out on my house without my knowledge, using my forged signature." "Mom, I can explain," Marcus began. "I'm sure you can. You've been practicing explanations, haven't you? Just like you practiced forging my signature." I showed him the comparison Rebecca had prepared. 45 years of signing medical charts gave me very distinctive handwriting, Marcus, and this isn't it. Sharon spoke for the first time. "Mrs. Johnson, we were just trying to help secure your financial future." "By stealing it?" I kept my voice level, professional. "By taking out credit cards in my name? By planning to have me declared incompetent so you could sell my house?" Both of them went silent. I continued, "James, Why don't you share what you found about their guardianship plans? James stepped forward. Email correspondence between Marcus Johnson and attorney David Webb discussing strategies to have Maya Johnson declared mentally incompetent. The emails detail fabricated incidents of confusion and financial mismanagement. That's not, Marcus stammered. It's all documented, Rebecca said, her voice cutting. Every forged signature, every fraudulent account, every lie you told to banks and lawyers. And Marcus? It's all recorded too. I played 30 seconds of the phone recording I'd found, Marcus calling me the old lady and discussing how I'd never figure it out. The sound of his own voice seemed to break something in Marcus. His shoulders sagged. Mom, I'm sorry. We were in trouble financially, and I panicked. You never meant to get caught, I corrected. There's a difference. Before we discuss your apologies, I said, let's make sure we all understand the scope of what you've done. Rebecca opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Marcus, you and Sharon are facing criminal charges for elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and identity theft. The total amount stolen or fraudulently obtained is $197,000. Sharon started crying. Marcus looked like he might be sick. The second mortgage on this house, $120,000, I continued. Credit cards opened in my name, $35,000 in debt. The personal loan using my information, $25,000. Various smaller thefts from my checking account over 2 years, $17,000. We'll pay it back, Marcus said quickly. Every penny. We just need time. With what money? James asked. According to our investigation, you quit your job 8 months ago and have been living entirely off stolen funds. Sharon's part-time work at the boutique barely covers your car payment. I watched my son's face cycle through emotions, shame, fear, anger, desperation. Marcus, do you remember what I taught you about consequences when you were little? He nodded, not trusting his voice. I told you that every choice has a price. Some prices are small, lose privileges, extra chores. But some prices are life-changing. You chose to steal from your mother. You chose to plan to have me declared incompetent. You chose to call me senile while spending my money on vacation. Mom, please. Now you get to pay the price. I turned to Rebecca. What exactly is he looking at? Elder abuse in this state carries up to 10 years in prison. The fraud charges could add another 5. The forged documents are federal crimes. That's additional time. Realistically, Marcus is looking at 8 to 12 years if convicted on all charges. Sharon's crying got louder. Marcus stared at his hands. However, Rebecca continued, we might be willing to negotiate if full restitution is made and certain conditions are met. Hope flickered in Marcus's eyes. He had no idea what those conditions would cost him. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice calm and clear. Rebecca, please explain the terms. Rebecca pulled out a legal document. First, full financial restitution, every penny plus interest and legal fees. Total amount, $247,000. Marcus's face went white. I don't have that kind of money. Which brings us to point 2, I continued. You and Sharon will sell your house, your cars, liquidate your retirement accounts, and surrender any other assets to make restitution. Where will we live? Sharon whispered. That's not my concern, I said matter-of-factly. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. Rebecca continued reading. Third, Marcus will plead guilty to reduced charges, felony elder abuse and fraud. Sentence will be 2 years in county jail, followed by 5 years supervised probation. Jail? Marcus looked desperate. Mom, I'm your son. My son wouldn't have done this, I said simply. A stranger stole from me. A criminal forged my signature. A predator planned to have me declared incompetent. My son disappeared somewhere along the way. James stepped forward. 4th condition, complete cooperation with law enforcement in any related investigations. This includes providing information about anyone who helped you, any professionals who facilitated the fraud, and full disclosure of all financial activities. And finally, I said, standing up, when you get out of jail, you'll dedicate 500 hours of community service to elder abuse prevention. You'll speak at seminars, help educate seniors about financial predators, and work with law enforcement to catch other people who do what you did. Marcus looked up at me with tears in his eyes. And if I agree to all this, then you avoid federal charges and a decade in prison. You get a chance to rebuild your life after you've paid for your crimes. I paused. And maybe, someday, you get a chance to earn back a relationship with your mother. I need to think. No, Rebecca interrupted. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, we file the full criminal complaint and you take your chances with a jury. The clock on my mantel ticked loudly in the silence. Marcus and Sharon huddled together on my sofa, whispering urgently. I couldn't hear their words, but their body language told the story: desperation, fear, and the dawning realization that their comfortable life was over. I went to the kitchen to make coffee, needing a moment away from the drama. Rebecca followed me. "How are you holding up?" she asked quietly. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel sadder, watching my son face consequences for what he's done. Instead, I feel relieved." Relieved? For months, I knew something was wrong but couldn't put my finger on it. Marcus being distant, Sharon making comments about my age, feeling like I was losing my grip on my own life. Now I know it wasn't me losing my mind. It was them manipulating me. Rebecca nodded. "That's common in elder abuse cases. Victims often think they're the problem." We returned to the living room where Marcus was staring at the legal documents. "If I sign this," he said, "what happens next?" "Tomorrow morning, we meet at the courthouse," Rebecca replied. "You formally plead guilty, the restitution schedule is established, and arrangements are made for you to begin serving your sentence." "How long do we have to sell our house?" 90 days. The court will supervise the sale to ensure full market value." Sharon spoke up, her voice shaky. "What about our children? How do we explain this to them?" For the first time, I felt a pang of sympathy. My grandchildren, 8 and 10 years old, were innocent victims in this mess. But then I remembered that Marcus and Sharon had been willing to take those same children away from their grandmother by having me declared incompetent. "You'll figure out how to explain it," I said. "Parents usually do." Marcus picked up the pen. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I am sorry." "Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Both, I think." He signed the documents. Monday morning, I sat in Judge Patricia Morrison's courtroom wearing my best navy suit, the one I'd worn to retirement parties and funerals, occasions that marked the end of one thing and the beginning of another. Today felt like both. Marcus stood before the judge, looking smaller than I remembered. His expensive vacation clothes had been replaced by a cheap suit from the discount store. Reality was setting in. "Mr. Johnson," Judge Morrison said, "you're pleading guilty to elder abuse in the first degree and fraud. Do you understand that these are felony charges?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you understand that the victim in this case is your own mother?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Morrison reviewed the restitution agreement. "Mr. Johnson, you've agreed to pay $247,000 in full restitution to your mother. How do you intend to do this?" Rebecca stood. "Your Honor, the defendant will liquidate all assets, including his residence and vehicles. A court-supervised sale process will ensure full market value." "And the jail sentence?" 2 years in county jail, followed by 5 years supervised probation with community service requirements. Judge Morrison looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I've been on this bench for 15 years, and elder abuse cases are among the most disturbing I see. When an adult child steals from an elderly parent, they're not just committing theft, they're betraying the most fundamental bond of trust and care." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. "Your mother is 78 years old. She trusted you with access to her finances, her home, her life. You repaid that trust by stealing nearly $200,000 and planning to have her declared incompetent." The judge's voice was stern. "This sentence is lenient compared to what you deserve." "Thank you, Your Honor," Marcus whispered. "Don't thank me. Thank your mother. She could have sent you to federal prison for a decade. Instead, she's giving you a chance to make this right." As the bailiff led Marcus away to begin processing, he looked back at me once. I met his eyes but didn't smile. Justice was just beginning. With Marcus in jail and assets being recovered, I faced an unexpected challenge, rebuilding my identity as something other than a victim. For 2 years, his manipulations had made me question my memory and judgment. Now I had to remember who I really was. The transformation started with practical steps. James helped me secure all financial accounts and change every password. Your son had access to everything, he explained. We're rebuilding your financial security from scratch. Each new security measure felt like shedding skin, painful but necessary. I was becoming someone stronger than before the theft. Rebecca handled asset recovery while I handled something more complex. Family relationships fractured by Marcus's crimes. Some relatives took sides, others avoided the situation entirely. He's still your son, my sister Louise said during a tense phone call. Maybe you should show mercy. I am showing mercy, I replied. He's not in federal prison, but mercy doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. Dr. Williams called to check on me. Maya, how are you really doing? I'm angry, but I'm also free, I admitted. For the first time in 2 years, I'm not second-guessing myself or wondering if I'm losing my mind. Good, stay angry. It'll keep you strong. The anger was useful, but something else was growing alongside it. Purpose. Other seniors began contacting me, sharing stories of financial abuse they'd never reported. I was too ashamed, said Mrs. Patricia Adams, whose nephew had stolen her life savings. That shame is exactly what they count on, I told her. It keeps us quiet while they keep stealing. These conversations planted an idea that would change everything. News of Marcus's arrest spread through our community faster than I'd expected. The local newspaper ran a story. Local man charged with stealing $200,000 from elderly mother. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion about my family's business. The reactions fell into predictable categories. Other seniors offered support and shared their own stories of financial abuse. Younger people expressed shock that an adult child could do this to a parent, but a troubling number of people suggested I was somehow to blame. Maybe she was getting confused, and he was just trying to help, I overheard at the grocery store. I heard she's being vindictive, pressing charges against her own son, someone else whispered. The comments stung, but they also strengthened my resolve. This was exactly the kind of thinking that allowed elder abuse to flourish, the assumption that seniors were either helpless victims or vindictive complainers. Sarah Thompson, my neighbor and friend, became my fiercest defender. Anyone who thinks Maya Johnson is confused doesn't know her, she told anyone who'd listen. That woman is sharper at 78 than most people are at 50. The support from my former colleagues was unwavering. Dr. Williams organized a letter-writing campaign to the newspaper with dozens of medical professionals attesting to my competence and character. But the most meaningful support came from unexpected sources. Other seniors began contacting me, sharing their own stories of financial abuse by family members. Most had never reported it. I was too ashamed, said Mrs. Patricia Adams, whose nephew had stolen her life savings. I thought people would think I was a foolish old woman. That's exactly what they count on, I told her. The shame keeps us quiet while they keep stealing. And these conversations planted the seed of an idea. Maybe Marcus's crime could become something larger, a way to help other seniors fight back against financial predators. 4 months after Marcus's arrest, Rebecca called with news that made me sit down hard. Mrs. Johnson, we've recovered more money than we expected. The house sold for $380,000, and we've liquidated their other assets. After paying off their legitimate debts, we have $267,000 for restitution. That's more than they owe me. Exactly $20,000 more. Marcus is entitled to keep that as his remaining assets after restitution. I thought about it for a moment. What would happen if I refused the extra $20,000? It would go back to Marcus when he's released from jail. And what could I do with it instead? Rebecca was quiet, understanding where I was heading. You could donate it anywhere you wanted. It's your choice. That afternoon, I called the district attorney's office and spoke with the prosecutor handling elder abuse cases. Mrs. Chen, I want to establish a fund to help other seniors fight financial abuse, I said. Would your office be interested in partnering on something like this? Mrs. Johnson, we desperately need resources for elder abuse education and victim assistance. This could make a real difference. By the end of the week, the Maya Johnson Elder Protection Fund was established, $20,000 to start, but with plans to grow it through donations and fundraising. The local newspaper, the same one that had initially focused on the scandal, now wanted to write about the fund. Local senior turns personal tragedy into community resource, read the headline. The article brought more donations and, more importantly, more seniors willing to share their stories. I realized I'd found my new purpose, turning my experience as a victim into advocacy for others. Marcus, from his jail cell, signed papers agreeing to the donation. It was the first time since his arrest that I felt proud of something he'd done. 6 months after that terrible birthday weekend, my life looked completely different. The Maya Johnson Elder Protection Fund had grown to $50,000 through community donations. More importantly, it had handled 12 cases of suspected elder abuse, helping seniors document theft, find legal representation, and recover stolen assets. My house felt like home again instead of a crime scene. I'd redecorated Marcus's old room, turning it into a home office where I coordinated fund activities and counseled other seniors facing financial abuse. The work was challenging but rewarding. Each case taught me something new about the tactics predators used and the resources available to fight them. Mrs. Eleanor Davis, 81, discovered her daughter had been writing herself checks from Eleanor's account for 3 years. I kept thinking I was just forgetting things, Eleanor told me during our first meeting. That's what they want you to think, I replied. Confusion is their best friend and our worst enemy. With the fund's help, Eleanor recovered $35,000 and her daughter faced charges. More importantly, Eleanor regained confidence in her own judgment. Another case involved James Parker, a 75-year-old widower whose son-in-law had convinced him to sign over power of attorney, then sold his house and moved him into substandard assisted living. I thought he was looking out for me, James said sadly. He was looking out for himself, I corrected, but we're going to look out for you. James got his house back, and his son-in-law got probation and a restitution order. Each victory felt personal. These seniors weren't just clients. They were fellow survivors of a particular kind of betrayal that cut deeper than ordinary theft. Rebecca, who had become not just my attorney but my friend, helped me navigate the legal complexities of running the fund. Maya, you're creating something important here, she said. This could be a model for other communities. The idea excited me. At 78, I was building something that could outlast me, something that would protect other seniors long after I was gone. 1 year after Marcus's sentencing, Sharon appeared at my doorstep looking exhausted and older than her 42 years. Mrs. Johnson, could we talk? She sat where she'd learned about criminal charges a year earlier, but everything about her had changed. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by discount store basics. The confident attitude had crumbled into genuine remorse. I want to apologize, she began, not just for the theft, but for how we talked about you, treated you. Why now? The kids ask about their grandmother constantly. They want to know why they can't see you. I've been trying to explain without making Marcus look like a monster, but... She paused. But he was a monster. What we did was monstrous. For the first time since this ordeal began, Sharon wasn't trying to manipulate or excuse. She was just broken. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing. I don't want money or help or forgiveness. I wanted you to know I understand what we did was wrong. And then she asked the question that changed everything. The kids want to write you letters. Would that be okay? My grandchildren. In pursuing justice against Marcus, I'd lost them too. His crimes had cost me more than money. They'd cost me relationships with 2 innocent children. Yes, I said. I'd like that very much. After Sharon left, I realized something had shifted. The righteous anger that had sustained me was softening into something more complex. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the possibility of healing. The letters from my grandchildren broke through walls I didn't know I'd built. 8-year-old Emma wrote in careful handwriting, Dear Grandma Maya, Mom says you're mad at Dad. I miss you a lot. I still have the stethoscope you gave me and listen to my stuffed animals' hearts. Are you still taking care of sick people?" 10-year-old Tyler's letter was more perceptive. "Grandma, I know Dad did something bad with money. I'm sorry he hurt you. You taught us to be honest, and Dad wasn't. I still want to be a nurse like you. Can you teach me when he gets out of jail? These children were victims too, casualties of their father's greed and their mother's complicity. They deserved better than losing their grandmother over crimes they didn't commit." I wrote back carefully, acknowledging their father's situation without demonizing him. The correspondence continued for weeks. Emma sent drawings. Tyler asked medical questions that showed his serious interest in nursing. When Sharon called asking if the children could visit, my first instinct was refusal. But these were my grandchildren. "Yes, but with conditions," I said. "The visits are about them, not Marcus or legal issues. And Sharon, if you use these children to manipulate me in any way, the visits stop immediately." The following Saturday, Emma launched herself into my arms while Tyler hung back uncertainly. "I missed you, Grandma," Emma said. "Your dad made bad choices that hurt me," I told Tyler carefully. "But I'm okay now. I'm strong." We spent the afternoon baking cookies and talking about everything except their father. For a few hours, I was just a grandmother again, not a victim or plaintiff or advocate. The visit reminded me that some relationships could survive even this betrayal. 18 months after establishing the Elder Protection Fund, I was invited to speak at the state capitol about elder abuse prevention. Standing before a committee of legislators, I felt the weight of representing not just my own experience, but the dozens of seniors I'd helped through the fund. "Honorable committee members," I began, "my name is Maya Johnson, and I'm here because my son stole nearly $200,000 from me and planned to have me declared incompetent so he could steal more." The room was silent. In the year and a half since Marcus's conviction, I'd learned that starting with the stark truth got people's attention faster than statistics or policy discussions. I'm not here to tell you a sob story. I got justice, my son is in jail, I recovered my money, and I'm stronger than I was before this happened. I'm here to talk about the hundreds of seniors in our state who aren't getting justice, who aren't recovering their money, and who aren't getting stronger. I presented the fund's data: 127 cases handled, $1.2 million in recovered assets, 43 criminal convictions. But more importantly, I told individual stories, seniors who'd been afraid to report theft by family members, who'd been convinced they were too old to fight back, who'd accepted abuse as inevitable. The common thread in every case is that the perpetrators counted on their victims being too ashamed, too confused, or too isolated to fight back. They were wrong about me, and they're wrong about thousands of other seniors. Committee member Susan Rodriguez asked, "Mrs. Johnson, what specific changes would make the biggest difference? Mandatory reporting requirements for financial institutions when they suspect elder abuse, enhanced penalties for crimes against seniors, and funding for education programs so seniors know their rights and how to protect themselves." The hearing lasted 2 hours. By the end, I had commitments for new legislation and increased funding for elder protection programs. Driving home, I thought about how much my life had changed. 2 years ago, I'd been a victim, isolated and manipulated. Now I was testifying before state legislators and running a fund that protected other seniors. Marcus's betrayal had accidentally created something powerful. 2 years and 3 months after his sentencing, Marcus was released from county jail. I knew the date. Rebecca had kept me informed of all legal proceedings, but I wasn't prepared for the phone call. "Mom, it's Marcus." His voice sounded different, smaller maybe, more uncertain. "Hello, Marcus. I was wondering if we could talk. In person, I mean." I thought about this conversation for months, rehearsing different responses. "Where are you living?" "In a halfway house downtown. I'm working at a warehouse, trying to get back on my feet." "Are you calling because you want something or because you have something to say?" Long pause. "I have things to say. Things I should have said 2 years ago." We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, where I felt safe and he couldn't claim this was a family reconciliation. Marcus looked older, thinner, with gray in his hair that hadn't been there before jail. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "I'm listening. I want to apologize, really apologize, not just because I got caught or because I want something. What I did was evil, Mom. There's no other word for it." I studied his face, looking for the manipulation I'd learned to recognize. Instead, I saw something I hadn't expected: genuine shame. In jail, I had a lot of time to think about what kind of person steals from his own mother. What kind of man plans to have the woman who raised him declared incompetent? His voice cracked. "I became someone I don't recognize." "Yes, you did. I know I can't undo what I did. I know saying sorry doesn't give you back the 2 years of stress and pain I caused, but I needed you to know that I understand what I did was unforgivable." We sat quietly for a moment. Then he added, "I heard about the fund you started, about the work you're doing to help other seniors. I'm proud of you for that." "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't try to make this about being proud of me. You don't get to feel good about what I built from the wreckage you created." He nodded. "You're right. I'm sorry." "What do you want from me, Marcus?" "Nothing. I know I don't have the right to want anything from you." Marcus's 500 hours of community service brought him face to face with his crimes in ways jail never could. Working with elder abuse victims under my supervision, he couldn't hide from what he'd done. His first assignment was database entry, recording information about seniors who'd been victimized by family members, just like he'd victimized me. The irony was intentional. "Whatever you need," he said quietly on his first day, not meeting my eyes. But as weeks passed, I watched him change. When Mrs. Dorothy Fleming reported her grandson's forgery, Marcus listened with intensity that surprised me. "Mom," he said afterward, "the way she talked about trusting her grandson, not wanting to believe he'd steal, I did that to you." "Yes, you did." He was quiet for a long moment. "How many cases like this do you see?" "Too many. That's why the fund exists." Marcus threw himself into the work with what seemed like genuine commitment. He developed better database systems, helped elderly clients navigate paperwork, and eventually started giving presentations at senior centers about financial protection. "Your son actually understands both sides," Rebecca observed after watching his presentation, "how scams work and how victims feel." I wasn't ready to praise Marcus, but his contributions were valuable. Whether driven by genuine remorse or self-preservation, he was helping people. During one presentation, an elderly woman asked him directly, "Young man, how do you know so much about elder abuse?" Marcus paused, then answered honestly, "Because I committed it against my own mother, and I've spent every day since trying to understand how I became someone who could do that." The room was silent. Then the woman nodded. "Well, at least you're trying to make it right." Maybe redemption was possible. Maybe. 3 years after that devastating birthday weekend, I received an invitation that brought everything full circle. The State Attorney General's office was hosting an Elder Justice Conference, and they wanted me to deliver the keynote address. "Mrs. Johnson," the Attorney General said when she called personally, "your work with the Elder Protection Fund has become a model for the entire state. We want you to share your story with law enforcement, social workers, and policymakers from across the country." Standing before 300 professionals dedicated to fighting elder abuse, I felt the weight of representing not just my own experience, but the experiences of hundreds of seniors I'd worked with through the fund. 3 years ago, I was a victim, I began. I was 78 years old, recently retired, and I trusted my son to help me manage my finances. That trust nearly cost me everything: my life savings, my home, and my independence. I told the story methodically: the discovery, the investigation, the legal battle, the recovery, but I focused on the transformation, how victimization had become advocacy, how personal pain had become public purpose. Today, the Maya Johnson Elder Protection Fund has handled over 200 cases and recovered more than $3 million in stolen assets. We've helped secure 67 criminal convictions against financial predators. More importantly, we've helped seniors understand that age doesn't make us helpless. It makes us experienced. During the question and answer session, a social worker from California asked, "Mrs. Johnson, how do you handle the emotional aspects of this work? Doesn't it re-traumatize you to constantly deal with elder abuse cases?" "Every case reminds me of what happened to me," I admitted, "but every case also reminds me that I survived, I fought back, and I won. When I help another senior recover stolen money or see an abuser go to jail, I'm proving that we don't have to be victims." After the conference, I was approached by representatives from AARP, the National Center on Elder Abuse, and several other organizations wanting to partner with the fund or replicate our model in other states. "Mrs. Johnson," said Dr. Patricia Nelson from the National Institute on Aging, "would you be interested in developing a national training program for elder abuse prevention?" At 81, I was being asked to take on my biggest challenge yet. My answer was immediate: yes. 5 years after Marcus's conviction, I sat in my home office reviewing applications for the Maya Johnson Elder Protection Fellowship, a program that trained young attorneys to specialize in elder abuse cases. The fund had grown from my personal tragedy into a recognized national resource. My phone rang. It was Emma, now 13 and spending the summer working as a volunteer at the local hospital. "Grandma, I've been thinking about what you said about helping people. I want to be a nurse like you were, but I also want to do legal work like you do now. Is that possible?" "Sweetheart, you can be anything you want to be, and yes, combining nursing knowledge with legal advocacy is exactly what elder protection needs." Emma had grown into a thoughtful, determined young woman who understood more about justice and consequences than most adults. Tyler, now 15, was volunteering with the fund's educational outreach program, teaching other teenagers about protecting their elderly relatives from scams. Both children had maintained a relationship with their father, but they'd also absorbed the lessons of his crimes. They understood that people they loved could still do terrible things, and that accountability wasn't the opposite of love, it was a form of it. Marcus had completed his community service and probation. He'd found steady work as a bookkeeper and lived quietly in a small apartment across town. We spoke occasionally, civil conversations about practical matters, but the relationship we'd once had was gone forever. "Do you think you'll ever forgive him?" Rebecca asked during one of our regular meetings. "I've stopped caring about forgiveness," I replied. "It's not relevant to the work we're doing or the life I'm building. Marcus made his choices and faced his consequences. Now I'm focused on making sure other seniors don't face what I faced." The fund's latest project was developing technology solutions for elder abuse prevention, apps that help seniors monitor their accounts, automated systems that flag suspicious financial activity, and secure communication platforms for reporting abuse. At 81, I was learning about app development and database management. Age, I discovered, wasn't a barrier to learning new things, it was just another challenge to overcome. Today is my 83rd birthday. Unlike that devastating 80th birthday, when I sat alone while my family vacationed on stolen money, this birthday is surrounded by purpose, community, and hope. The Maya Johnson Elder Protection Fund has grown beyond anything I could have imagined. We've handled over 500 cases, recovered more than $8 million in stolen assets, and helped secure criminal convictions against 134 financial predators. The fellowship program has trained 47 attorneys who specialize in elder abuse cases. Our educational programs reach thousands of seniors each year. But numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is in the faces of seniors who've learned they don't have to accept abuse, who've discovered that age brings wisdom and experience that can defeat manipulation and theft. Mrs. Rose Peterson, 85, whose daughter had been stealing her Social Security checks for 3 years. We helped her recover the money, and her daughter went to jail. Rose now volunteers with the fund, helping other seniors navigate the legal system. Mr. David Kim, 79, whose son-in-law had convinced him to sign over power of attorney and then liquidated his retirement accounts. David got his money back, and his son-in-law got 5 years in prison. David started a support group for male victims of elder abuse. Ms. Catherine Williams, 74, whose nephew had been using her credit cards and taking out loans in her name. Catherine recovered over $40,000, and her nephew now has a felony record that follows him everywhere. Each victory proves the same thing. Seniors are not helpless victims waiting to be rescued. We are experienced, knowledgeable people who can fight back effectively when we have the right tools and support. To anyone hearing this who thinks they might be facing financial abuse, listen carefully. You are not too old to fight back. You are not confused or paranoid for questioning suspicious financial activity. You are not being mean or vindictive for holding family members accountable for theft. Document everything. Get legal help. Press criminal charges. Recover your money. And remember that surviving abuse isn't enough. Thriving despite it is the real victory. Your age is your advantage, not your weakness. You've survived decades of challenges, raised families, built careers, and accumulated the wisdom that comes from experience. Trust that wisdom. Trust yourself, and remember, they picked the wrong senior citizen to mess with. If my story has helped you understand that elder abuse is never acceptable and that fighting back is always possible, please share it with others who might need to hear this message. Like this post, subscribe for more stories of seniors who refuse to be victims, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power. The best revenge is a life well lived and a legacy that protects others from the harm you've overcome. Justice isn't just about punishment, it's about transformation. And sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the best thing you ever do for others. I'm Maya Johnson, I'm 83 years old, and I'm just getting started.